Hi, Raven.
Chito.
How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm great. Just finished training, and I'm very excited about talking to you because what you do for a living and where you're involved is something that I have for a long time wanna be part of and do a ceremony. So let's start with this. How how you start this journey with ceremonies and helping people go through a lot of things with natural medicine.
Well, I'm looking at your painting back there, right? And if you notice throughout cultural history, other than the time that we were killing off all of the indigenous people, because I'm half Spanish, half indigenous, bit of German and French in my genetic history. Other than that time, we have kind of looked at Native America as a symbol of maybe a better time or cultural peace and unity and harmony, even though they were very violent as well, and there was a lot of wars. But I got the blessing of having an indigenous heritage that comes through thousands of years of, and it was most recent for us, right? So the Romans came in and took out people's indigenous heritage for the Irish a long time ago. That was 1,500 years ago, 1,200 years ago, 400 years ago. And slowly as they conquered, people were replaced with this empire that happened last to our people, because you're from Ecuador. Right, so the pre-Columbian
Spanish.
the Spanish came.
They came and they pretty much rip off all the indigenous that were locals to Ecuador, and that's how the race mestizo came.
Mestizo,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure that's a white Spanish person,
And mestizo.
having kids with a indigenous person.
Yeah.
Some brownish person come out like
Yeah.
pretty much like me.
Yeah, and the British had a different view of it. Like the British said, we're gonna segregate them and control them and kill them off, and the Spanish said we're going to fuck the blood out of them. We will purify them with our blood. So the mestizo was very, very. I mean, that's what all Latin people are. And so because I had that heritage, and I had a grandmother who was the last of a very specific lineage, and also she was kidnapped from her tribe and sold into slavery in Mexico when she was 5.
Oh wow!
There's a whole generation of that happening. They call it the Lost Bird generation. But I never felt. I grew up in Orange County, where we are, right? And so I didn't feel at home here. I was born in Mexico, but I didn't feel Mexican enough for the Mexicans. And as I discovered my indigenous heritage, I didn't feel native enough for the natives, or white enough for my European ancestry. So I started looking into it when I was young, and I started realizing, oh wow, there's a lot more to my ethnocultural side of both Mexican and Mexican Indian, and then I dove into it. I wanted to know. I wanted to know what my grandma had and why she worked with herbs and why she did this and why she did that, even though she was devoutly Catholic, because she was kidnapped and brought into a Spanish family. But she maintained the indigenous root, and she healed with herbs and medicine, and she was a very powerful healer, to the point where I didn't discover this till later, which was probably, to answer your question, the major jump point. I had always, as I got old enough to learn, to study, to discover, to look into these alternative ways of healing that I was hearing about and reading about and finding out about my ancestors. I went down to Mexico with a couple friends, and I was 19 years old. They were from Australia. We bought a 1971 VW bus, painted it, and we wanted to drive to Tierra del Fuego. That was my mission. These two Aussie blokes, and we had surfboards. And off the coast of Zipolite, I took a head dive into a sandbar, and I crushed my neck. And when I got out of the water, I couldn't breathe. I could barely move. and the compression, I damaged my vertebrae. And it was so severe that over the next 3 days, I began to lose complete sensation, motor control, had trouble urinating, couldn't swallow, couldn't eat. I just laid in the back of the VW bus. I was like, take me to the airport. I need to fly home. I fucked myself up. But I'm 19 and I'm trying not to tell the guys that I'm falling apart. Like, it's really bad. I'm having trouble breathing. And over a 3-day trip, because at this point too, the bus is falling apart. Like, right. It's just falling apart. So it took us 4 or 5 days to get like a 2-hour drive. We're going super slow, and I'm trying to get a flight. There was no phones. It was pre that. So I have to get to my grandmother's house because she lives in Mexico, in Puebla. And I didn't tell her what was going on. And my buddies kind of helped me in, and I'd stand up so she doesn't notice anything. She says, ay, mijito, hace mucho tiempo, me da un abrazo, right? She takes them, come in, lie down. She gets them a room, and she says, you go to my bed and lie down, and don't move. I said, okay.
She knows.
She knew. I was falling asleep, and the last thing I remember was her sliding her hand under my neck. I didn't tell her anything. And I fell asleep, and I woke up 13 hours later, and she was still there. Dormida, just.
Just.
But she's still holding my neck. And I got up because I had to piss, and I was dying of thirst. And I got up and I ran, and all of a sudden, wait, what the fuck? And I drank. I couldn't swallow, dude. It had compressed. 2 of my vertebrae. And it was gone. Like, all of my symptoms were gone. Just like that.
That's crazy.
And what got even crazier was I still flew home. And over the next month or two, every once in a while, I would just, like you see in the movies when somebody gets blurry and then they pass out, or, you get hit. I'd pass out just randomly. And I'm like, something's wrong. So I went to go see a friend of mine who was a chiropractor and a neurologist who had taken care of me before. And they did scan on my neck, and they did x-rays. And the next thing I know, there's 5 doctors in the room. And they're like, you should be paralyzed in a wheelchair. You should be a quadriplegic.
Wow.
What the fuck?
Like, while you're walking.
How are you walking? And I told them the story, and they're like, well, Grandma defied the laws of physics and human anatomy and physiology. You shouldn't be able to move right now. And it was crazy. And I was getting these because the compression on the vertebrae, when, you compress and you crack spine,
the nerves
shut down. They shut down. And so I had one crazy, like, my chiropractor was bananas. We talked, and they documented it and whatever and everything. What are we going to do? Surgery. And he's like, no, we're going to do this thing. And he was also raised this way. He got taught his magicianship in a bus in Portland, Oregon. And I had worked with him for many years. So he was like a little body magician. And he put me on this table. He strapped me to this thing, and he said, this is going to suck. Put me like in a head, like a
the thing to elong the
decompression,
spine. Yeah.
Right? Except he puts his both feet up, and his assistant holds my feet. And he goes, I want you to count to 3 and then take a deep breath. And he goes, 1, and just and it popped and my neck went back into place. Literally, he decompressed the spine at that moment, which this is all crazy and impossible.
Right.
And I was breathing, and I realized I hadn't been breathing in 3 months, which was weird. Like, reality went back to normal. So what did my grandmother do that superseded
the big problem
to allow me to live, or to be not paralyzed and have that moment to fix it? And it was at that moment that I said, okay, I want to know about this, because they don't teach. Where do you learn about this?
Right. Only that person can teach you that.
Right. So I went into basically anthropology and culture, and then it led me to film. I got kind of obsessed with telling these stories through film, and then I ended up in LA and Hollywood and trying to make movies about this stuff, and I got sucked in. But the medicine brought me back because I got overwhelmed and kind of sick mentally, and then that's when I found because I had kept with them my medicine elders and medicine teachers, because I would try, I want to do a peyote ceremony, or I want to do ayahuasca, or I want to do this and I want to do that. And so and then I also wanted to learn Tai Chi and learn about the energetics of the body. What was this energy that got displaced? Watching Shaolin monks kind of move their energy in different ways. So I just started studying, and whoever would teach me, I learned. And then it turned out, because of the knowledge base, that I wanted to become a full-on neuropsychologist after filmmaking. And at that time, you had Dr. Younger on the podcast. He was one of my homies at the time. I was learning from him. All of my homies, my neurology professors that I was kind of doing, I had become an apprentice, really, because I was doing film work for them. They recommended I didn't become a doctor, and I stayed in the jungle, and I stayed with the elders, and I did that would be more valuable in a decade.
Then just go to regular school for being
Correct.
a doctor in any arm you want.
Correct. And so I spent the next 10, 15 years just going to jungles and being in the Mexican desert or wherever, and learning that way, also studying and also kind of using the neurology. So what happened is that I was always a translator for the medicine men and women. And they liked me as a translator because I also knew science. And so I could speak to a group of Westerners and I could get them comfortable. This is what's happening in your biochemistry. This is what's happening in your what's happening in your brain, and what's happening in your sugar uptake and your serotonin receptors. And this is what happened the next day, as well as this translation of the elders only having story and metaphor as it was taught to them for thousands of years.
Right.
They had no idea what a serotonin receptor site was, or what acetylcholine's role in this is. So it put me in a position to learn a lot, and they relied on me, and they taught me a lot. And pretty soon they're like, it's time for you to do medicine. And I didn't want to do that.
Like going into the elders practice.
Correct. Like have my own group and my own people. And
like almost like you graduate from being around so much. It's like some elder came at you. It's like, hey, now you go and practice on people this.
Correct. And that usually takes decades or lifetimes. You know, like you're picked when you're young, and then they know that they'll raise you. But in this way, they're like, we need it. We need your help. We need what you do. They do a thing. They give you palabra. They give you the word. Okay, go practice. And like I said, I really didn't want to. I liked bringing people to my elders. You know, they had been doing it. They were raised in the jungle. I was still a foreigner, you know, kind of in my own blood. But I had all this other information, so it gave me two worlds to be able to integrate the practice that I do, and it also made my practice very, 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 very effective. From what I learned about psychology and neurology and neurophysiology, I was able to integrate a lot more, and I work with people kind of more intimately, where sometimes you can only go see a medicine man and you go do a ceremony for 2 days in ayahuasca, and then you go back home, you know. So I was able to really create a connection with people and an understanding of why they were coming to medicine.
So like in terms of like some people can do the ceremony with peyote or with ayahuasca. Which other medicine you can use for a ceremony?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of medicines that we use. I call it party-wasca. Like it in L.A. and New York and all the rich and kind of privileged kids have really, what I've seen, turn ayahuasca into this kind of party cool scene, like Instagram.
Right, like almost using it for for have fun, like
Yeah.
smoking a joint. Like
Yeah.
there's two different things. That should be for heal something, or to look for answers, or just simply look down what's inside you. But I wouldn't play with it because the trip can be
Yeah.
long and dark, and you just don't know.
Yeah, and the ratio of good medicine carriers, and also because, these quote unquote shamans, and we've talked a lot about what I call shamanella poisoning, which is this epidemic of instant shamans, or even older traditional shamans, medicine people, that are now getting a lot of money from the Westerners, and that money procures kind of an environment where they're not being very accountable or very responsible in the old ways, in the old traditions. For example, my teachers were like, you never build a Facebook group, or you don't promote online. Who comes to you finds you, like with your grandmother.
Like someone that need it will
Find
figure
you,
it out. Yeah.
or you'll find them. And 100%. And I'm busy all the time. If I put like a post out or something, it would be ridiculous, and I wouldn't want that work anyway. Like everybody that I've worked with has always just found me through the wind,
They came.
and that's the old way, And it's and I have a nutritional business, and I do other things, and I do my online consulting, and so the medicine itself isn't like how I make money. So and I didn't want to create that model of
Right.
grouping. But in terms of like your question, like what medicines are there? There's a lot. And in the tradition, very specifically, that I learned, before you get into medicine, you clean up, because you're not just cleaning your body. And we talked with Dr. Younger. You talked with him about the gut. It's a foundational thing. You got to clean the gut, and there's medicines that do that clean the gut and also clean the mind and clean the spirit to get ready to do ayahuasca, like kambo. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's the Amazonian tree frog.
Like DMT.
No, that's bufo, which is a secretion from the bufo, and you can smoke that, and that's 5-MeO DMT, which is a larger form of the NN-DMT instead of out of a plant.
Right.
Right, the extract, the pescovite, we call it. But kambo is a secretion from the Phylomedusa bicolor. These guys did a thing on it.
That's the thing that changed from Ball and Film with you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so that's when they poke you.
Yeah, you do a burn. You do on the epidermis, exactly. You do a little burn, and then you can see it right there. There's a little bit of white skin. That actually gives access to the lymphatic system, because it's our whole organ system.
It's open.
And it just so happens that the kambo secretion from this giant monkey tree frog, the Phylomedusa bicolor, it just so happens that it has a slew of bioavailable active peptides that go into the lymphatic system and do all kinds of crazy shit in the body. I'm talking, they're still studying it. We still don't know the effect of it, but there's an analgesic, which is 5,000 times stronger than morphine, anti-inflammatory properties. It's great for healing. And my medicine people, my elders, are like, you want to do an ayahuasca ceremony? Yeah, no. Go do kambo first with this guy, and then come back. You got to clean out first before you go start messing with this, the quantum entanglement of our history and ancestry and all these things. We got to get this cleaned out, put these things together, get your shit straight. And that's what I really respected about the traditions I worked with.
Yeah, it's not just like sit down, drink this, and go to hell for a few hours.
No, and they still won't. People come to them like, oh, dude, no.
So like, what the first thing does to you? It just cleans you out? Do you get high or hallucinate from the kambo?
No, kambo is purely physical, purely biological. There's the frog. And what's amazing is that in the history of the frog, see the secretion, it makes this peptide conglomerate, and it's a neurotoxin. Like all the animals in the jungle do not mess with this frog.
They die if they touch it.
By the time they have it in their mouth, they're in deep paralysis. So if you apply it any other way into the body, you'll die. You know, there's just a Mexican actress who died from it. And again, I think that's a lot due to practitioners not knowing what the fuck they're doing.
The wrong practice.
And I mean, this whole thing, this comes from Vice. There was a guy who actually, and I know the story behind this, the guy who got to her. There's a lot of people, one of them trained with my elder, did kambo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's good. There's a reaction.
Oh, you turn into a frog?
You can. Yeah. You go full frog from the skin is the largest organ in the body. So if you're secreting massive amount, you go through a rapid detox, accelerated detox.
How long
Raven,
this
for
lasts?
people who are just listening, can you explain what's going on here?
So the medicine has been applied, and within 30 seconds to 3 minutes, this can happen.
Wow.
The body, the soft tissue, again, one of these active peptides activates soft tissue and it can cause a swelling response, just like if you get stung by a bee, and cause a swelling response. And so in this particular person, that's what's happened. Their face swells up, your mouth swells up, your throat swells up, and you go into a massive kind of anaphylaxis purge. And then you start throwing up, you start vomiting, shitting, pissing, sweating. Every way that the body can secrete, it starts. Right. That happened to Alejandro, by the way. Did he ever show you his pictures?
That's crazy. How safe this is? Like how you get rid of the swelling? Just time?
Oh, it's just time. No, I had a woman. She was a model. She went home and she's like hated the swelling so bad that she ended up taking an antihistamine. And from the antihistamine, because your body's trying to go through a reaction to heal.
Right.
That's what it. So when you have a histamine response, your body's trying to get something out, right? And so what do we do in the West? Pfizer or these companies tell you, take an antihistamine. Stop the process of trying to get this toxin out of your body.
So the problem is never solved. It's just put it aside for a second.
Put it aside. I've worked with hundreds of people with lifelong being medicated for allergies. They come and they do a combo session. It's done in a specific way, 3 over a 28-day cycle, and you have to do it with water. And there's a very specific way that you do it. Not all cultures do it that way, but that's how it was taught us by the ayahuasca. Is how we learned how to do the combo. So that's crazy. A plant told us how to work with this frog. And
can you share that story?
Yeah. And so anyway, just to finish the last story, this girl took the anti-inflammatory and got violently ill for 3 days from the antihistamine.
Because now your body's fighting the good part of what's happening.
Right. And it's trying to get it out. And she's like, I don't want to look puffy. And it just wrecked. It wrecked her for 3 days. Yeah, stay home. But the story is, whether it's legend or true, I think that's how all reality is, right? But when we were talking about when the Spanish came, they brought disease, measles and herpes and all these things that we had never experienced. We just didn't have them at the time here. And so they brought all these wonderful things. You know, we give them gold and chocolate and magic and medicine, and they give us herpes and every other thing. Great,
which
thanks.
Is great.
Nice trade. And they take away all our gold and our empires. But one of the things that would happen in South America, in Ecuador, in the Amazon, like the whole Amazonian, they were getting really sick from all these diseases brought by the Westerners. And they didn't know how to treat these with the herbs in the jungle. Like, we know what's here. It's going to take a long time to figure out, to talk to the plants, and that's what you do. You talk to the plants. And so a bunch of ayahuasqueros got together, and around one in particular, his name was Kambo. And apparently to him, the message came, we need to go find the frogs that sing at night, and we need to sing to them, and they'll come. And then we take the secretion, we store it on a little stick and a little leaf, and then you burn the skin, and then you, with saliva, you apply it, and you do this much, and you have to do it 3 times within a moon cycle, so 28 days. And they have to drink this much water, and it'll clean these sicknesses that white man has brought. And in time, white man will return here to be cleaned of the sicknesses by this medicine. And they saw that. And I mean, that's kind of crazy, because how would you know what to do with this? Like,
first of all, find the. It's a frog. You gotta find the frog.
First of all,
then how you know you have to scrape it? You could eat it.
You could eat it, lick it. Yeah, it's not no bueno. But burn the skin and put it on.
Yeah, that's a crazy revelation. Like how you find that that's the process to that. Burn with a stick, and apply with a stick.
It's crazy. Oh, the plant told me to do it, and then you do it and it works. I'll tell you, Chito, doing this, coming from being raised in the United States, sometimes I'm sitting with people, and I'm sitting, and I've worked with everybody from like leaders in the free world and billionaires to like indigenous people. Like sometimes I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm applying frog poison to a person's body. Like, whoa, this is wild.
It is crazy.
And some of them are like on the verge of death, or have been plagued by chronic illness and disease. And they're looking to me to help, and that's the whole process. And I always have my grandmother. She's like right here all the time. I won't do a medicine ceremony unless she says it's okay. I won't give a person with a particular condition unless she knows it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And that's energy. You know that you can feel it, you can understand it, and one day can be like, hey, don't do it. It won't work for this person. It will hurt you more. Or it could be like, go ahead, this person. Because I see like that's one part that is kind of like getting a little lost in time, that now everything is take this pill or use this machine. But I mean, going back to some herbs and eat clean, and go for a ceremony when it's needed, it will definitely cure a lot of problems that we live in today's society.
Yeah, and the thing that comes up too, I did a podcast with these 2 guys in New York, and they asked me a question. They said, and they were talking about the medicine in terms of like an element in their toolbox, because they had done kambo with me and had extraordinary results. And they're like, yeah, it's another element in our toolbox. And I said, Dominic, do you have a girlfriend? He goes, yeah, we're actually planning on getting married. Okay, so you're getting married because you love her and she contributes to your life, and she's been possibly a good mother for your kids. You're like, yeah, that's what I'm headed for. I'm like, is she another thing in your toolbox? He's like, no. I'm like, well, these medicines are not a tool in your toolbox. They're a relationship that you build to contribute to the overall well-being of your life and the well-being of the planet. And when you cultivate that, it's really different than taking a pill at a pharmacist.
And the experience, and also just getting high.
Correct.
Versus like setting an intention, trying to figure something that you haven't been able to figure it out, and you just want to see a little deeper and a little further.
Well, yeah, and I think that's how we started this conversation. It's like, well, why come to these medicines? Why do the kambo, or why drink ayahuasca, or why eat a mushroom, or why do a mushroom ceremony? And seeing a little deeper, seeing a little further is actually so important, because as we talked about then, scientists now say that on the spectrum of information in the cosmos, human beings can only perceive with our organ systems less than 1% of that reality, which is bananas.
Yeah.
Right? So we're walking around, like with a basketball on our head with a pinhole on it, and that's our reality. And I think the metaphor I gave you before was, it's like having a television stuck on channel 4 in 1956. It's just, that's all we're looking at, and we think that's reality. We're convinced it's reality. We have laws and science and technology and all this paradigm that says, no, this is reality. And when people get called to these things, it's nature saying, hey, there's actually a lot more to your reality. here, eat this mushroom or drink this tea. And suddenly you're handed a remote with 100,000 channels.
You're like, wow, this is the things that I wasn't seeing. Like, this is how I can get better. This is where I can go get opportunities, instead of like you're just like you're in the rat race.
Right. You're just confined in a very simple, repetitive structure. You're right. And they even, they call it something now. What these medicines do is they disrupt something that we call the default mode network. The default mode network is is when your brain is in this one thing, just doing the same thing over again, right? It's default mode. That's where you are. But these things come in, psilocybin, mescaline, ayahuasca, which are serotonin agonists, and they bind to receptor sites in your brain, and all of a sudden, that your brain starts communicating and creating a larger sphere of information. You can get synesthesia. You can taste a color. You can see a smell. You can look. You can hear a bird or somebody having a conversation 300 yards away. The brain changes, and without kind of any kind of obsession of coming in and saying, I'm going to learn how to be a billionaire after this, or I'm going to gain superpowers, or maybe it'll help me win my next fight. It's wow, what happens if I build a deeper connection to my bubble goes from here, and then my reality now, my love and my emotional spectrum and my connection, my ability to listen and hear and see others will allow me to manage my space. What does that do with my relationship with my kids, with my lover, with my wife, with my mom, with my family? How does this kind of allow me to contribute more to the holistic model? And of course, how does it allow me to be a better husband and a better hunter and a better fighter and better, so that I can do it unified here?
Right.
And I heard a thing, I don't know, maybe I was 18 or 19, from a medicine elder that I just only really started to get in the last few years. Like, really get. And I talk about it a lot with people, especially when they want to come do medicine. And he said that the hardest, longest, most difficult journey, the most horrendous battle any human being will ever undertake is the journey from here back to here.
Right.
It's a 13-inch journey.
But no one really want to fight that fight. Everybody put problems aside, ignore that this is wrong, kind of like maintain a relationship that they don't want to maintain, but they do it because it's politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like when you go through a ceremony, you just come like fully aligned and open to say, not good, this is really good.
It happens.
I want to take this path.
Yeah, it happens a lot, and it pulled me out of, I was producing films and doing that, producing a feature film and doing this and doing that and training and all this stuff to kind of push away my intimacy with myself and the people around me. We go to great lengths to avoid this journey. In ancient Japan, I mean, I don't think so much anymore, but if I ask you to identify where your mind is, where do you think your mind is?
I mean, right now, like just in the top of my head, I would assume like pirate, a Viking, or a samurai.
Right, but if I ask you in this present to point out where is your mind, what part of your body is your mind?
I would say my heart.
That you're a very small percentage of people. Most people point up here, say my mind is here. But with these, especially in the samurai culture, they call it the kokoro, heart mind. This is the mind. So getting back here for us, I think, is really important as a culture.
Also, I would say that my great answer, I was on an audiobook for like, I don't know, for the 10th time or whatever, with the 4 agreements. So I'm kind of like, I'm a little aligned just because for this morning I hear like an hour of the book. So I'm kind of like, in tune a little more with what's really good instead of like with the regular bullshit I'm thinking every day
You're
scrolling
thinking-
on social media.
And that's important. And that's actually what I have tattooed on me. It's the 4 agreements.
I love that book.
They're in symbolic sigil format, but I wanted to have the 4 agreements actually imprinted on my body for the Mexica, for my ancestors. Tattoos weren't just a marking; they were medicine. You know, you do
in the old days, yeah.
Yeah.
Like the warriors earned their tattoos, and in the Indians, like the biggest warriors, they will get a mark on them instead
on the
of
mark
like,
on them. Yeah, and also if you were sick, if you were ill, like a medicine person might recommend a tattoo.
so people can get away from you.
People get away from you, protection, or even just psychological and emotional balance. You know, I'd read the 4 agreements a long time ago, and I would go back to it, and I would go back to it, and the audio, and Peter Coyote reads it, and he has a great voice for that book. I love his voice. And I was like, you know what? I need to get this ingrained more. Like, how do I take nothing personally? I take so much shit personally. I'll always do my best, even if it's whatever. You can only do your best every day. You know, and I wanted to be able to look down and know that they were there.
Right.
Right.
And there's a few of those. Even the teachings of Don Juan is a really fun read.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's about anthropology too.
Yeah.
So like when you set up a ceremony, how this works? Like people come to you, you only do a certain amount of people. And what is the process once the group is in this location and we're about to start? Like how is the whole thing goes?
So from kind of beginning to end. So I used to do ceremonies where I would announce within my community, literally, because I didn't post anything. I would just have the thought. I'm like, oh, you know what? Day of the Dead's coming up. I want to do an ancestral cleansing day or something. And I would just kind of talk to some people, and then we'd put something together. And then 30 people would sign up, 40 people sign up, and we get together, we figure out the place. But I used to then have like my own ceremonies that I would then invite people to. Because of the amount of work that I have and the amount of traveling that I do, I don't really do that anymore. And I've gone back to what we call petitioning a ceremony. So now more often what will happen is somebody calls me because they need a cleansing, or they're sick, or they have stage 4 cancer, or, you know, they're on the verge, something. And so they'll call me and they'll say, I would like to petition a ceremony. And so I can either work with them privately, and I can, you know, they'll either fly me out or they'll come see me, or one of the two. It's why I travel like 75% of the year, and I do ceremonies all over the world. But then what will happen is we'll either do a private ceremony, or if the cost isn't conducive to them doing it by themselves, then they'll get 5-10 people together, and, you know, they'll share the economic weight of putting together, because it's a minimum 3-day thing. Usually when I come out, it's for 7 to 8 days to do the full spectrum of what I do. And so they'll petition some things, usually one person will petition, people will join around that. And then we'll have a place, and that place can be somewhere where we've done ceremony before, or it can be completely new. And I was working with a group in the UK where we want to start doing ceremonies at some of their sacred sites, which is really exciting for me, to go to the stone circles and do a medicine ceremony. And they're like, we have a place. So that's, you know, one thing we're going to do next, and activating the earth on that level with ourselves too. But then what we do is we go there. What I like to do, the kind of most impactful thing that I've done, the kind of protocol that I've done for everybody, whether you're terminally ill or you haven't gotten out of your house in 5 years because of a condition, or you're bedridden or stuff, like that, the strongest cleansing and the most effective way is combining 3 different traditions into a single focus. over a 7-day period gives us the strongest output of what I've seen. Because I learned the medicine over here specifically with the mushrooms from my ancestors, the Mexica and the Maya. We carry, that's been in our tradition for a really long time. The kambo I learned from the Amazonian peoples, specifically in southern Colombia. And then there's another, and then you have things like sweat lodges and all these things that I've learned. But usually what we open up with is a Mayan tradition of a very specific fire that we do. And this fire focuses our identifies what we're doing, what we're working with, what we're going to be. There's Tata Eric walking around when we did the one in Mount Shasta. This is our
that looks beautiful.
Yeah,
there.
There's Alejandro. And we had, it was like 30 people there.
Mm-hmm. And everybody did the ceremony?
Everybody did it, yeah. What was crazy about this one, man, is that, speaking of how did they come up, right? How did we get this together? It's in the middle of COVID, like right in the middle. The riots were going on everywhere. There's riots going on. And I had this, like this thing was like, you need to do ceremony. There's some around this COVID thing. You need to be with the elders. And then somehow Alejandro, I called him and we're like, we can film this. We can put together this storytelling around what my intention with this, because I've never let anybody film anywhere before,
right.
Any medicine. These two and Alejandro, yes, because the intention was to tell the real story about what we're actually doing, how this stuff works, and keep people from going to these horrible ceremonies and with these horrible kind of situations. And so we all got in cars, man, and caravan across the country in the middle of COVID, and we don't wear masks. We're not vaccinated. We're from that crew, and people are like, "Are you crazy?" And
right.
His people in California are like, "You can't do that. You're gonna get, no, we trust me." And he's like, I trust Creator. Creator brought me to this fire.
Right.
And
now, I mean, we don't have to get into it, but now the people that was pushing it, now they regret what they did. But
yeah. And we're gonna go do one of the strongest immune system boosting medicines on Earth, like literally the vaccination of a medicine
God.
frog, from God. Your immune increases. It's just what happens physically and physiologically, and can happen. And what I've seen now over 20 years of working with this is, it's miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle after miracle, which is crazy, right? So we start the fire. We always start the fire. You see how I do that? We start it in the traditional way. It's full of, we build it very specifically with a very specific geometry around the structure of the elements, fire, air, earth, water. And then that helps us, whoever's doing the ceremony. We use rapé, which is a traditional medicine that I think you're familiar with. I think Radha uses it a bit. And then we create a space that is kind of electromagnetically and kind of chemically charged for us to work in an environment. And then we begin a 3-day process of 3 days of kambo. And then we finish with so it's fire. And that fire people have started spontaneously healing from their diseases at the fire sometimes. And we don't take medicine. That's just, it's so emotionally powerful.
The way it's made.
The way we make it and the way we hold it. And it's a Mayan tradition, thousands of years old of the offering. Then we get into the medicine for 3 days. We do this, we clean out, and then on the last day we eat the mushroom together.
How much mushrooms would you eat in a ceremony?
Depending on what each person is. I mean, basically you would come up to me at the altar, right? I'm sitting at the altar, and right before we sit, we talk a little bit. I look in your eyes, and I look over at my assistants, and we all know at that moment, 3, you get 3 grams, or 7, you get 7 grams. It depends. The spirit tells us at that moment.
Right.
And this is after 3 days of vomiting, diarrhea, cleaning the body out.
Correct.
And fasting, eating the right foods, eating light.
Yeah, you're pretty much fasting in 1 meal a day. and then we get to the day of the mushroom ceremony, and you don't eat most of the day, some broth, minor food, because you don't want to go in super heavy.
Right.
And then we do it at night, and we do that through the nighttime into the morning. And one of the reasons that I'm happy I do it that way is that you're getting this incredibly powerful cleanse from the Amazon tradition of the kambo, which again is not psychotropic. So it's 3 days of just fucking hell. It's like hard.
So
Some people, Raven, correct me if I'm wrong, describe it as the worst flu they ever had.
Worst flu they've ever had. I've had a lot of women that have given birth to multiple children saying that was harder than giving birth. It's an ordeal.
It's because you're getting rid of all the bad, so it's gonna hurt.
Yeah,
It's like having diarrhea, which you get vomiting,
contractions in the muscle. One of them is a smooth muscle contractor. So it actually triggers all the smooth muscle in the body, which is all the organs and the fatty, like to contract. And what that does is it causes all this stored toxins in the fatty tissue around to secrete, get absorbed. And you now know this, the epithelial cells, right, that leaky gut in us, right, it goes into the gut, attaches to the ions, allow it to pass through. And we just start, people start puking black and green and all these different organ secretion.
There's a lot of bad things that you have stored for years now.
Correct.
I mean, since I was really young, I always was kind of like in tune and be like, one day I want to do an ayahuasca ceremony. Not to getting high. I don't think I have a reason to do it, but I have always wanted to do one and just see what happens during the process. Like, I have a friend of mine when I was younger. He used to train with me, and he's like, dude, I did one over the weekend with this shaman up in the mountains. And I was like, how was it? He's like, dude, he was extremely powerful. I saw crazy things, but out of the whole group at the time, he was like the most chill guy. And I was like, fuck, I mean, the way he told me, and he told me that he suffered, of course, a little bit during the process, but I was like, this guy's so chill. This thing gotta be good. Now, the thing that sometimes, in a way, worries me, I think, what about if I do it and I come back and I say I don't want to fight? That scares me because I want to fight. I have a thing that I want to fight till like no more than 38. Okay. I would like to become a world champion and do all these things by 37. And maybe that 1 year of like maybe taking fun fights here and there, and after that just, be a normal person with a normal business and be able to be a little bit more present at home, because the life of an athlete is crazy. You just gotta work out all day long. So,
yep. Well, just based on what you said there, and I'll give this to you to ruminate with. You said two things, and they're related. The first thing you said is, I want to do ayahuasca, but I don't have a reason. The self, if ayahuasca has called to you,
there's a reason.
Well, there's a reason for it, right? If you're listening, and they say in the jungle, they say in all the medicine, it's like if you hear about it or if you're called to it, it's because whatever you want to call it, the Divine Mother, God, the universe, whatever your tradition is, the universe is speaking to you and saying, hey, there's something here for you, and it's not only just curiosity, but it's actually mucho importante. Like this is, right. It's actually significant. And the second thing you said is like your fear of like what may happen, right? Like, oh, what if it says I don't want to fight? And so it's super important for you to look at that. Look at that. It's kind of like saying, I don't want to fight that guy because I'm afraid. What are you going to do? You're going to fight that guy.
Right.
Because that's where that guy will be your greatest fight.
It's a challenge, yeah.
It's the challenge, right?
Within yourself.
Within yourself. And it's not him.
It's me.
It's you, right? So the challenge of saying, I'm afraid that I might not want to fight is what you have to go with there 100%.
Right.
And go, what is that story? What is that story about?
My thing is like, what happened if I come so chill and peaceful that I'm like, and I just told myself, fighting is not good. When I that's what I do for a living,
Right.
and I love, and
Right.
I wouldn't make it this far in life without fighting.
Right.
That's what I appreciate it so much. It's like I go to a trip, I see all this crazy life out there, and I just come back and I'm like, peace and love, no more war.
Well, this is where we get into, I saw it in your bathroom. You have a book by Sun Tzu, right? The Art of War. And this is where we get into an understanding of the deeply human experience. And it happens. You see it in there. If we were to take a drop of your blood and look at it under a microscope, what do you see? See if you can find like an active, just kind of blood, like a bacterial biome, just like the stuff that's going on in the blood.
Blood under a microscope.
Blood under a microscope, just the general mayhem. It's generally mayhem. There's stuff like platelets and bacteria and stuff eating. It's like a fight.
Right.
It's literally a little battle in there
Between good and bad.
between good and
in
bad.
there.
But we don't really know especially if you're not let's say a doctor or a scientist, more larger magnification than that. Like if you have the like getting into intracellular, like where you're looking at white blood cells and red blood cells, and you start to see cells consuming each other. If we don't know what it is, we know it's a fight, right? But this kind of chaotic,
Find a better one.
yeah, but especially disease or viruses and how they attack, or bacteria, immune system response to a virus or bacteria, something like that. But anyway, if you zoom out, you look generally healthy. You see this, which
Right.
is a peaceful state of existence. It's generally orderly. But then we zoom out a little further, and we see the fight politically, and we're on the verge of World War III, and it's everybody's a little bit like this,
Tense.
more than I've felt it ever in my life, right? The anxiety. But then you zoom out, and you look at this picture that just came from this new telescope that's between us and the sun, and you just see a peaceful blue planet,
Right.
right? And even if that blue planet were to get annihilated in a nuclear war, you pull out a little bit further and it's just shining points of light. That's all we got, right? So it's not necessarily that you might come peace and love and not want to fight anymore, but rather you'll see that your fight is an essential process in a holistic model of the universe.
Can you
Okay.
also speak to how warriors used to take medicine to?
Yeah, I mean, specifically in the jungle, in the Amazon, they would come and do kambo before a battle, or before a really big hunt, or to find a mate. It's a part of our heritage. It's part of our cultural understanding, and it's also, I'm sure you've heard this, where people that are schooled and traditioned in a martial art are 90-something% less likely to commit acts of violence every day,
True.
right? They're much more. So the art of a warrior is one of discipline and commitment and strength. So, if that's kind of feeding the like, oh, I'm afraid of, like, what would that bring? Again, face it, take that with you, and remember that there's, and this is something crazy that I learned from the Zen tradition that I sat with, which is there's only one thing worse than not getting what you want.
Not trying it.
No, it's getting what you want.
Because then you realize it's not as big as what you thought.
Exactly.
That happened with a lot of material stuff. Like, I love that t-shirt. You have it on and you're like,
That's a good t-shirt.
it's just a t-shirt.
Yeah, and you get the belt, and you're like, okay. There's a really high level of athletes and Olympians that experience really high level depression.
Right after
afterwards.
they won.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've been, and I talk to people like this because I find myself like highly motivated and drive, and it comes and goes. So some days you feel like a miserable piece of shit, and we all go through that battle. It doesn't matter who you are, what you have, where in life you are. So because it kind of know how to handle that on me, even on my lows, I'm like, I'm still alive. I can call my best friend. I can call my wife. I can call my pops. Everything is okay. So when I'm talking to someone that is going through something, I'm like, hey, because at some point they was like, oh yeah, but you're doing well. You have achieved a lot of in life. And I'm like, let me give you one example. There was one or two fights in my lifetime, in my career, that after those fights I blew up, right? The whole planet was like crazy on me. And I'd be driving back home from the hotel, because it was either a local fight or Vegas, whatever, driving back home, and you feel like the most miserable poor person in the world. You were like, I have this crazy high 6 hours ago in the octagon, and now I'm driving back home and I feel like depressed, and you feel like you're nothing, and like everything is wrong around you. And it's just, yes, you train so hard, you won, cool, but for all highs there's a big low
There's a
coming
big
up.
low, and this is the key, is that, yeah, we can explain what happened to your epinephrine and norepinephrine and cortisol and all the things that have fired, which have caused this incredible high, right? And we can explain it chemically. Most neuroscientists will want to. Oh, well, you just feel depressed because you just had this amazing output of chemicals. But it's not that simple, because what the medicines teach you, or have taught me, what the Zen traditions, the Buddhist traditions that I have worked with have taught me, the Chinese traditions of meditation and presence, is that it doesn't matter where the high or the low is. It doesn't matter what your chemistry is doing. If this connection is open and your heart is centralized around every place, however wonderful and however shitty, what you realize is that they're exactly the same. And if you learn, again, the medicines are a great teacher. An elder in the tradition is a great teacher. The yogic traditions are great teachers. But if you practice, then what happens is that dip chemically after the win, you'll just be at the same peace and joy, like peace and love. I don't want to fight actually becomes peace and love. I can totally fight, and I can totally drive home and just be another asshole on the freeway and not be super depressed because I'm not out winning.
Right.
Which is a lot. I was just talking to John about this. Sometimes I'm in my Zen garden, right? I have koi fish and I have waterfalls and I have my plants that I grow that I put into my medicine. And I'm like, the little demon shows up. Shouldn't you be out doing more? Shouldn't you be out making another movie or like pushing the agenda of like whatever? Shouldn't you be succeeding again like you did when you were young? And I'm like, shut the fuck up. I'm enjoying the grass and I'm happy for the first time in my life.
Right.
Like you, after my movie premiered at the Man's Chinese Theater, and I did what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do for so long since I was a kid, because one of my earliest memories was being in line to see The Empire Strikes Back, right? I wanted to premiere my movie at the Man's Chinese Theater like George Lucas. When I did that, I left my party, I went home, I grabbed a bottle of vodka, not home, to my hotel. I anger sexed my girlfriend because she was being horrible. And then I went out and I drank half of it and passed out in the hallway. And it was one of the most miserable nights of my life.
And it was the biggest dream that you had.
Yeah, because I
wasn't aligned.
I wasn't aligned. My heart I wasn't present to the divine state and its up and down. The medicines teach you that because they take you through your darkness, man. We call it going into Mitlan. Mitlan is the underworld. It's the place of your darkness.
And we all have that.
It's where and if you think about it, just biologically, right? Everything that grows, this grass is all coming out of the dirt, the ground, the really, the snakes and the worms and the mushrooms and the filth and the shit that we don't look at in our, we flush the toilet, but All of that's in the ground. And that's where it all cultivates. And that's where the mushroom pops out of. And that's the ayahuasca vine and the lotus flower. And all of these herbs are coming from and often grow the most powerfully in the most amount of shit, right? So what the medicine often takes you into that shit, Meatlan, the underworld. And kambo does it because it's making you kind of be in relationship with your darkness. And ayahuasca can do it emotionally, psychologically. Oh my God, what am I doing in the world? And you have to face it.
You have to. Yeah, I'm not opposed to face it.
Well,
yeah, and that's one thing that I like to like think about, like what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. Like today, I have been nice to people around me, and constantly trying to just check on what I'm doing, where I am, and kind of like when I'm heading, because sometimes you get so busy on a goal or something that you just go kicking doors, slapping people, and you're like
just stepping on people to get to what you want,
and then
right?
you go like, that's why like meditation plays a big part. Like it only takes 5 minutes to close your eyes. I mean 10 minutes is you get a better result, but you can start with 5 minutes. Just close your eyes and try to stay pitch black.
Yeah.
And just breathe. You open your eyes and you're like, oh, nice.
What was better?
I think I can do this more often, and that helped me dealing with a lot of the challenges that come through the mind, the pressure, all that stuff. Just close your eyes, and just relax, and a little bit of mushrooms here and there, just to you get a little touch of reality, and you should be just fine.
I microdose 4 to 5 days a week. I make a very specific formula, kind of built on the traditions of my ancestors, and also like Paul Stamets and all the neurobiologists and mycologists doing really cool stuff. So I formulated one to kind of keep me in touch with it, and very specifically, they're mushrooms that are grown and cultivated for us, and that we use in ceremony. And so I carry them with me.
So
in jars.
they're not just like in the black market.
No. These are like, and they're charged. And it was really, this was crazy, right? So we talk about are you familiar with the mycelial network of the mushroom?
No.
Okay. So that grass, underneath, pretty much all over planet Earth, there's a network of mycelia fungus. And that mycelia is an interconnected web that just covers all, no living thing on Earth exists without a fungal network, this mushroom network. And it's like a giant chain. They actually call it the nervous system of the planet. Yeah, it looks like that. It's just this micro network that goes, and it's crazy. That
looks like the nervous
the neurons
system.
Yeah, it's literally the nervous system of the brain. The original Google, some people call it, it's like the information network of the brain, and every tree and every plant is connected through it, and that's what these things are communicating. The whole world is communicating through this interaction, and there's a nitrogen exchange, and because mushrooms don't make they don't have photosynthesis, so they need to get their nutrients from the plants, and in exchange they help them convert carbon dioxide. This is a whole beautiful exchange, and they also decompose everything that dies. So really the mushroom is the decomposition, I like what Paul Stamets calls them, the interface organism between life and death. The mushroom comes in and helps a dead thing turn into life again. And then it's a really beautiful.
It's a circle of life.
It's a circle, right? And so that information network exists, and it's constantly, and they now know that they're communicating. They're actually talking. They just made a robot. Have you seen the mushroom skin robot?
No.
Pull it up. Like some biologists taught
That's crazy.
mushrooms how to control a robot, and they're starting to track their communication. It's like a really highly advanced level of Morse code that's being shot back and forth, and they're like, fuck, they're talking.
That's crazy.
So I had heard about it, and we know it as metaphor, and we know about it as about story. And beyond the scientific level of what we see in the earth, they also talk about it on the quantum level, that in that these things will also talk without being connected. Like you take a mushroom over here and they know what they're doing, and the elders talk about him that way. And so that they would send him you could talk with somebody in a village 1,000 miles away during a ceremony. And we've seen it and we've done it, right? But the really crazy one was, I was cultivating and we had these mushrooms, and I was working with them for a long time, and I was making my supplements and making my chocolate bars and making, no, not that one. That's where the mushroom's controlling that. There's a mushroom controlling that, giving it its motion. But there's a one that looks like a funny little meat suit, like it's a mushroom skin. It looks kind of creepy.
The mushrooms that you do, it's on a pill or it's a chocolate?
Both. I make both. Well, this is when I started making the microdoses, because that's a daily pill. But so just to give you an example of how they communicate, this was crazy. I made there it is, the fungus bot. Yeah. Bring it back. But just to finish this out, and then we'll look at that, which is kind of around this conversation. I made a bunch of chocolates, and I sent them to friends, and because they're I have them as gifts, and they're regulating, and I had them in one place in Colombia, some in Europe, and some from this one particular batch that I had. And this was when it was like a controlled weird experiment, and everybody ate them a couple times, and then they would buy like 4 or 5 bars from me at the time, so they have some in the fridge. From one bar, and a piece of it, and then I went and I did a ceremony month with some of the Mayan elders, and it was like a month of hardcore medicine, like every day, and doing things and eating mushrooms. And at the end of that month, like right when we ended, it was on the full moon. It was around Halloween. I started getting calls from all of my clients, and they're like, "Hey, this has never happened before with your product, but all of a sudden we're eating them, and they're 10, 15, 20 times as strong. Like it's so intense. We ate what we always ate, like 1 gram of the same bar, put it in the freezer. We ate 1 gram on the full moon, and we got blasted into it was a huge process. Like what the fuck happened?
That's crazy.
But I got like 12 phone calls like that. That's never happened before.
They communicate.
So that's bananas.
Because it happened to me, because I Rory used to provide me these 0.2 milligram pills. It's pretty much ground mushrooms in a veggie capsule. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you take 1 capsule, you feel nothing. Sometimes you take 1 capsule and you feel like a little bit, like the waves coming in and out, and it feels good. And sometimes you take one and you're like, whoa, you're holding for this. You're like, this feels like 3 pills.
Yeah.
Because if I do like a really long run, I would take like 2 pills and go. So midway, I kind of like feel the fire. But like sometimes 1 pill, it will put you upside down.
Yeah. And you feel like you got to lay down and cry for a minute.
Yeah.
And I think from my understanding of working with them for 30 years, and for me, it's like I can put a mushroom in my hand and I know what it's going to do to me. I can just feel it. Like I can feel them in the room. I'm like, oh, there's mushrooms here. But from my understanding of what they've taught me is we are a electromagnetic, electrochemical system, right? And we think we should be stable and it should be like all day. We have frequencies and vibrations and radio waves and emotions and memory and hormonal cycles, and emotional cycles are a really big one, and we're constantly ruminating through loss and gain and family and death and ancestral stuff. And the times that it's like this, the chemistry is the same, man. It's the exact same amount in a pill. Why did it hit me this hard this day, or why? And it could be, the electromagnetism of the environment, or I'm training or whatever. But I found that it's mostly dealing with our emotions. Like if you find the times that you got hit the hardest, what you'll find is that usually there was something around that. Trouble with the wife, mom was sick, or stuff that you're not processing. stuff that you're afraid to process, and it'll make you do it. The mushroom does it. It actually attacks the fear center in the brain. It goes after our limbic brain, and it causes it to relax. And when that relaxes, what happens is you kind of flood into things that you're afraid of, or you're afraid of losing, or maybe I should quit that habit, or maybe I don't, it's not good, or, you know, and that's, it's a wave. It's a wave of consciousness.
Comes and goes.
Yeah, it comes and goes. And I think it's good to be in contact with that.
Yeah, I for a time I was very consistent with it as I would call it almost as a supplement. Like
yeah, for sure.
Sometimes you take a little bit and you don't feel nothing. Sometimes you take a little bit and you feel something. That means your energy, your internal you is dealing with something, and just let it be. Just sit down, sit on the grass, go for a walk, or just face it.
Just face it.
Just face it and don't do nothing about it, because it will go away. Just it's something getting handled that if you can, the medicine will.
And I think that key right there, what you just said, is so important for the planet right now. Because what I've watched, just a cursory glance, and you if you turn on the news or if you watch any of the political stuff or what's going on socially, and what I see is that we're turning into a planet of non-accountability. Nobody wants to take accountability for anything. It's their fault. It's the Republicans, the Democrats' fault. It's this fault. Everybody's like, then we have a generation of these, pretty much everybody under 30 is fighting with just the ability to be able to go to work or be accountable or be able to just be responsible for their own emotional well-being. It's everybody else's fault, and I have anxiety because of this, or you said something and it triggered me. And what that is, it's our unavailability to our own account,
right,
to our own direct experience of reality.
Can't blame others for your own bullshit. Even if someone hurt you, walk away from that fucking person.
Right, and we have it here, right? Nothing is personal.
Yeah.
And everybody's telling you everything personally.
And something else that I see, no one today, like I would tell you, like, oh, I'm having a problem with Roddy. Roddy showed up late to my house and we had a meeting and Roddy didn't brought me the right salad. Whatever the fuck it is. Why I don't go and be like, yo, bro, you have to be more professional. And if you have a problem, let me know. And two people talking like that fix every problem. That's why every time I caught myself telling a friend or a family member something that I'm pissed off about someone else, I make sure that day, because we all do it, and we will do it, but I make sure that day I at least text that person and be like, hey, I'm not happy with few things.
Yeah.
We need to talk. Or just call the person and be like, hey, this is wrong.
Yeah. Direct experience.
But today, it's all I see. Like you see a group of people talking about people that is not in the group, and then I see them together. I'm like, you gotta stop being a bitch. And it's because we don't know how to handle our emotions, and we're afraid to speak. And
yeah, everybody's terrified of confrontation, and that's why I think actually fighting is very important in our culture, because we're not allowed to anymore, right? It's like so we've been doing.
I tell people to go and fuck themselves when I have to.
Yeah.
I live better like that.
Yeah, and I think it's the facing, again, going back to this facing your shit. Like when you take the medicine, or when you do a really intense meditation, you actually physiologically have the experience of global unity, consciousness unity, because your brain's actually firing on parts of your brain that don't communicate in the default mode network, that are managing different levels of interpretation. Actually, all start talking, so this music increases. And one of the things that they talk about in Eastern philosophy is that basically, and I've had this experience I tell it to people in ceremony all the time. I go, remember, we are actually one body. We actually are one body. Even though we're walking around, we have different things. This is all one consciousness, and one body is expressing itself through the thing. And if you get to that level of the Buddha talked about that, and the medicines will show you that, it's like, I'm actually the whole universe. I don't live in the universe, bro. I am the universe, and and you are too. And we're
That's
nodes.
exactly what in the Four Agreements say. Like when everybody see this guy as God because how wise he was, and it's like no, you are God
You're
too.
the same
But
thing
they were
too.
like no,
No,
you
you're
are.
God. And we get addicted, and that's the non-accountability. I don't want to face this. I don't want to look at that. It's too much responsibility to be the divine self.
But
No, I'm just
within yourself, you are your own church. You pray, you do the right thing, but it starts with you.
It starts with you. And so when you're having a hard time with someone, what in that is you?
Could be a lot.
All
Could
of
be
it.
everything.
All of it. It's always just you.
They say relationships are just a mirror, right?
Yeah, it's a mirror. Well, the central tenet in Buddhism is the eye cannot see itself,
That's true.
right? And so the eye can't see itself. So what do you need? What does the eye need to see itself? A mirror. Consciousness the same way. The brain has no experience of itself whatsoever. It's only experiencing this. So when people come to me and like, I know myself, I know that I can't do medicine because I would freak out, or I can't get in the cold, or I can't do, it's like that self that you're talking about is just your mirrors, and you're wrapped up in your narrative of mirrors. When you take the medicines or you do these meditations, you go into the medicine.
Everything opens up and like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, I am not who I think I am. I'm actually an infinite being. I'm dealing with an infinite source. That's actually my connection, and there's no kind of like agent along the way that I have to deal with, like a priest or a church or this or that or blah 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 blah. Not even the medicine over time. You realize, oh, I'm connected to this source 24/7, 100% of the time.
You just don't realize it.
Yeah.
Or accept it.
Or haven't been trained to.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Raven, real quick to take it back to shamanilla, and a lot of people want to do a ceremony, but they don't know what's safe, what's not safe. Can you just touch on your advice for somebody who wants to do a ceremony, what protocol to take, and the importance of approaching it with intention and reverence?
Yeah. So step one in that is just gonna tell a funny little story real quick. A guy who had done lots of medicine, he knows better. He heard about this medicine man in Colombia. He was doing great work, and he shows up. They open the door. This girl dressed in white, looks like a stripper, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the way she's dressed, shows up, has him sign a waiver, then charges him $5 for every piece of toilet paper in a little plastic envelope that and gives him his cup of ayahuasca and says, "Okay, enjoy." And it's like, what?
I would have walked away.
Exactly. And I said, "Larry, why did you do that?" And he's like, "Well, because everybody's talking about how great this guy is." I'm like, I don't care what everybody's saying, dude. First of all, trust your gut instinct. I waited 15 years to do ayahuasca until I found one person that I trusted, because I looked in their eyes and I said, "I don't care about your tradition," because almost a lot of that is somewhat even meaningless now because of what's happening with the shamanella poisoning. They're just getting money, and they grew up in the Shipibo tribe, or they grew up and they're this tribe, but they're still, they've been poisoned by the thing. And so the number one way that I think to do it is not to, if you have that call like you, right, and that desire is there, allow it to come to you, right? Don't kind of like jump on the internet and go, there's like, look, it's a shaman. There's like, I think in Iquitos, you get off the plane and they show up with the shaman shack like menu. They sell it to tourists. It's like, hey, you can come do it over here.
That's generic.
Yeah. Don't do that. Like, for sure, don't do that.
I mean, if you let it come, it will come. Like, if you start like talking to your people around you that that's something that you're interested, someone in your group or someone that overhear you will be like, I think I know a person.
And then it'll show up. It just let it come to you. That's the way, first of all. Number two is meet with the medicine person, or at least talk to them, and ask them about how they do it, what it's like before, what it's like after. Do they have interaction with you? Can you have access to them because you're going to go through a lot? Is there an integration aspect of the ceremony, or does everybody pack up and leave the next day? And look in their eyes as much as you can, and say, I trust you. Like from here, from the gut, when we know what this does, trust that, not even their resume and what tribe they came from or how many years they've been doing this.
So you trust that person.
Because all medicine people are crazy. They're all bananas. We have to be to do what we do.
Right. You
right?
can be like a normal, chill person.
We're a little wacky, all of them. And so what you're going to do is you're going to find a medicine person that exactly fits your wacky. That you're like, I feel comfortable with this nutso, helping me go through my underworld and to my outer world, and I feel safe, with it's kind of like if you're going in a rocket ship in outer space and you're going to go on a spacewalk, and you want somebody that is going to be able to
drive that thing,
to do that with you, right?
Or jumping in a race car. Are you jumping
for sure.
with your friend that doesn't know how to drive?
Or you're jumping in with someone who knows how to drive.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So do that. And then don't go after it like most people do in the West. Go after all the things. It's just cultivate the relationship and the understanding of what is this relationship that I want to cultivate with this plant. Why is that? Like we talked about that a minute ago. You're like, I don't really have a reason to do it, but I want to do it. Find that reason that you want to do it, because it's there. Otherwise, she wouldn't be calling.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, we're not. The attractor is there. The magnetism is there for a reason, and there's something in here. So spend time with that. Oh, okay.
Research in your own.
Research, yeah. It's again back to accountability. What am I so who's going to fit into that model? What tradition? What medicine? Everybody's doing ayahuasca, but do I want to do a peyote ceremony, or do I want to do a wachuma ceremony, or do I want to do a mushroom ceremony? And what are the differences between those ceremonies? What do different medicines give me? Because they each have a different energy. They also have a different agenda. Each wants a different thing. These medicines come with their own vibration.
Right.
Just like plants create, a phytoestrogen or phytotestosterone, because the plant wants something. It wants to, I need more shit, which means I need more fertilizer, which means there needs to be more cattle. So I'm going to create a phytoestrogen. So when the cattle eat it, they want to fuck more. They'll go impregnate, and we're ruled by plants. We don't even know it, right? They actually are creating hormones that affect us. So if you're being affected by that, find out what environment, what each agenda, and talk to people, because mushrooms kind of are very specific about a certain thing. Ayahuasca is very specific about a certain thing. For example, I find it very prominent in ayahuasca that she wants us to be very, very, very aware of what's happening in the rainforest, because if we don't, then she's going to go away. So she wants us to make so many people doing a lot of ayahuasca, and they're like, I'm going to have a baby, and getting there's like, and because they're motivated to, and it's like, oh, hey, that's a plant also. Just be aware, the plant is going to show you your universal consciousness, help you get your shit together, and also have a little bit of an agenda, because she needs us to fix the planet before we decimate her environment, right? And she has a very motherly approach. And then peyote is very different, and wachuma is very different, and kambo is going to come in and it just wants you to clean out and get your fucking shit together on all levels. Mushrooms, in our language, we call them tete no nakats, which translated like body of creator, or the little god people, carriers of the original instructions. And mushrooms are super hardcore about you getting to understand that you are a cosmic, interdimensional creation machine integrated with the whole universe. Learn how to use your magical powers. Like they're really, a lot of the experience are like, get your thing on straight, because you're infinitely powerful, right? And so then, find out, do your research, learn, cultivate a relationship with each one. Like, what is it emotionally or energetically? Because people hear about ayahuasca, so they're like, I just want to go drink ayahuasca, because everybody is. Okay, well, let's settle down and figure out where's the desire coming from.
And the intention behind it, what you want out of it. Like, there's a big list that you gotta be with yourself, like, when you go into it. It's not just like, let me just go and see crazy shit out there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that. And, you know, I don't do that anymore. That's why I don't do the bigger groups. It's because you get a lot of that, of just kind of wanting to replace the party scene with, like, the interdimensional scene, which is great. I do think there's a level of psychonaut experience that we need, because as we move into, you know, as paradigm revolutions come, where we're like a flat earth and we're a round earth, we're not the center of the universe, it's moving around us. We're moving into a state called quantum superposition, where multiple timelines and yes, one thing can be in two places at once. And our brains have to get ready for that. And that's
Right.
another reason I think everybody's freaking out, is because we've already crossed the threshold. We crossed it in 1930 when we discovered all this subatomic reality is like, whoa, very different than atomic reality. But the medicine people know how to manage that, for sure. Like when you go into quantum superposition, because you've eaten a mushroom or ayahuasca, it's easier to manage the reality that we're moving to as a planet,
That
which
makes
is
sense.
too much information.
It is at the same time.
Yeah.
Fuck. Now I want to do it for real.
Yeah, it would be fun to have you go through a ceremony with Raven and then bring him back.
I will do it. I've been wanting it for a while, so I get the right knowledge now, and actually I need some mushrooms. Thank you, brother.
Well, yeah, and I talked to my the curandero I work with in the Taita in Colombia, and he said, "Yeah, bring him down. We have a spot. We'll take care of him." It's one of the few people I trust. There's only
I'll be there the second week of January.
yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
Hey, that
I
was
really
great.
appreciate
Thanks for the invitation.
Anytime.